for four walls and somewhere away from the mission. And they're like, no, I want something nicer. I want something nicer for me. I want something nicer for my kids. And that's a pretty encouraging goal when somebody's like, no, God's made me for better than this, or whatever this doesn't mean this is bad, doesn't mean that somebody can't live here, but it's created me for something different, or this is not where I want to be. So our model at City Vision, because we're not, so we have three components of the Wounded Healers program. So case management is kind of part of it, but it's not the same case management that you would do at your mission, or whether you use chaplaincy or whatever it might be. The case management we offer is through me, and it's more of a resource management, educational, advising, and connecting to networks. So if someone were at Sunday Breakfast or at Durham or at Springs Rescue Mission, if I notice one of my students is struggling, when I say mine, they're not mine, they're City Vision's, but I have a process, right? So we try and keep an eye on how they're progressing. So in week 2 of every term, I start looking at every single one of our students' grades. Right? So we have a spreadsheet that shows me like from top to bottom, like lowest grade to highest, students that have not submitted assignments or have late assignments. So I start going through those, and I pick the Wounded Healer students and all of the other students. Anyone that's close to failing, I start reaching out. So I do that week 2, I do that week 3. If I haven't heard from them and I can't connect with them and get them back on track, what's my next step? I reach out to you, because you're the next point of contact, and that's what the program's for. Like it's almost a dual parent role, except you're the big parent. I'm just like maybe the uncle that's like, hey, I saw Bobby walking down the street 3 times last week. Is something wrong, right? So I call and I check, say, is something going on with them? Because sometimes they won't tell you or they won't tell us. So it helps support and catch things a little bit earlier. So that's the case management part. But our 5-year outcome goals are innovation, capacity, and aftercare, kind of starting with the aftercare. So that bottom circle, right, they serve about 10%. I do need to change the slides. It's closer to 15 or 20 now, program graduate partners as a key strategy in transforming their lives. The reason that it's more than 10% now is when we started this, we didn't have 9 certificates. Right? So what we have, I'll show you in the undergraduate certificates, captures more students because it fits into their skill set or what they want to do. So like, we have this associate's, bachelor's, and master's degree in addiction counseling. So a lot of people are like, I want to be a licensed clinical addiction counselor, right? But some of them, their calling is to be a recovery coach. Right? So you have this big goal of a 4 to 6 or 8-year degree. That's a hard, smart goal for somebody that just got a year sober. But a 6-course certificate that would make you a certified recovery support specialist and a recovery coach from a faith-based university that takes less than a year, they can do that. That's a good fit into an internship program. It's a good fit into the next year of their life. So that translates into staff and organizations, right? So it enables our partners to more than double their total staff training hours. St. Matthew's House, I don't think it's on this slideshow, but that's where I came from. And I've mentioned, like, we went from no peer supports to 23. In 5 years, St. Matthew's House spent $60,000 total on staff training. But they had over, like, 20,000 training hours documented. Right? So because Pell Grant paid for most of it. So all of these staff members that went from being program staff or interns, when you get, so I've got case managers, right, that don't have college degrees, which is fine. It's not a big deal. But I've got program staff that don't have college degrees, but they've got peer support specialist credentials. So they start pushing on the people above them. So the people above them are like, well, I need to go find a way to get my peer support credential too. And then the directors are like, well, what do I need to do? So the entire competency of staff from the bottom up, instead of it being directed from the top down, it comes up. So from the roots of your program up, it gets stronger. And that's the culture that I talked about earlier. One of those main barriers to treatment and to treatment outcomes is the internal culture of a program. When you have interns and program staff that understand triggers, that understand stress, that understand coping and dealing with things, and understand some of the methods behind them. The guys at St. Matt's also go through self-confrontation, right? We give credit. You guys know what self-confrontation? So it's one of the first steps to being a biblical counselor. There's a self-confrontation manual. It's a 26-week. It's intense. Like when I started it, my first week was a 52-page document. I'm like, holy crap, this is a lot. But they go through self-confrontation, and we give credit for people that complete the self-confrontation manual. So there's a lot of things that you can do inside your program that will also boost their transfer credits that we will give you credit for. So it increases the staff from the bottom up, and then so it turns into a movement, right? So innovation, so you turn into a major source of thought leaders and innovation to enable movements to continue to grow and thrive. So that hits in my story because 9 years ago, it's May, right? 9 years ago today, I'm getting ready to go get a DUI, right? So in that 9 years, I've got a bachelor's, 2 masters, and I've started on a doctorate, and that's all what God's done. Because I remember sitting at my desk as a director, like I don't know how I got here, and there's guys in my office asking me all these questions. And I'm like, hey, you guys need to understand I can't do my job, right? Without you guys understanding and listening, without the Holy Spirit guiding and just helping us just do this together, like I don't have that kind of capacity or competency. So when I look back, I'm aware of what the Lord's doing, and it makes me like, then I know He wants to do this, right? And there are people that at our organizations, and there are people in the room, right, that the Lord wants to do. He's done stuff with us. You're all here because He's not done, and it's not, it's not the song, it's not, it's not the saying. It's just like there is I've said it before. It's like, so everybody in the room's saved, right? So you're not still on the planet for you. I'm here for others. And because if he didn't have anything else for me to do, He'd take me home. So this is a 2025 statistic. So graduation rate is 54%. That matriculated students means for students that finish one class, there's a better than half chance they're going to finish their degree. So that's a big deal for just one class. 94% employment rate for graduates. We had 2001 wounded healer students. So those are students from partner ministries or students that have completed a residential recovery program, were homeless, or been in prison within the last 3 years, and 71 ministry partners. That William White paper that I talked about earlier, the transformational change paper, there are components of a transformational change, and these are the things that rescue missions are really good at, but this is kind of the formula. I don't know if anybody knows William White, but he wrote a ton of addiction counseling papers way back. So transformational change involves, and it's kind of across the bottom. So I'm experiencing a period of isolation and discontentment. Individuals experiencing addiction, homelessness, and their imprisonment. Then I'm introduced to a message or a messenger of hope, a partner residential recovery or reentry program. At some point during that program, you guys ever heard the term, wait for the miracle to happen? Right? The miracle happens. There's a transformational change. That, a lot of times, like those 3 things happen because of they found grace. They found a rock bottom. They entered a program, right? And then at some point, a lot of people have this transformational change. The ministry's job, and this is where the community and the ministry and the churches take over, is that change has to be validated, right? Because it might happen, and then their buddies might be picking on them, right? Because they had a change of heart. So staff, program staff, directors, chaplains, all these people need to validate that experience. And then they have to have an entrance into a community of shared experience. That's what I was talking about, was a big deal earlier. So we have this trend of experiencing addiction. They go through a program, and then they go to stable housing and employment. And we miss that transitional period, whereas another one of those barriers to long-term recovery is how do you get them? You were talking about this before we started. What's the question of the day that you were going to ask?
Me?
Yeah.
Question of the day.
How do we get them from?
I'm so sorry.
Well, I talk fast. Remember this from last year. It's like the question of the day might be, how do we get them from the recovery program into stable housing, right back into the social environment? Right. And the question is slowly, or the answer is slowly, like almost as slow as we possibly can.
And my question is, how many hours a week do you work on this thing?
Oh, it's my full-time job.
Okay, so you just put in 40, 60, or 80 hours?
A lot. I don't know that I count it, but I mean, so I'm the program director of the Wounded Healers program. I teach the Wounded Healers course. So I'm probably closer to 60 or 70.
And that's what I'm feeling.
Yeah.
It's huge.
It's big, yeah. It's big. One of the, we all struggle with the word compassion fatigue or burnout, right? My philosophy, my personal one is I'm supposed to get tired once a day. That's the way God made me. If I get tired before I'm supposed to get tired, or if I stay tired, then I'm probably being more self-reliant than the Lord wants me to do, which means I'm probably doing things that He didn't tell me to do. And when I can figure that out,
finding that sweet spot that you're talking about there.
well, I'm going to go from Christ-reliant to self-reliant. I can't avoid it. Right? I'm human.
Right.
But I have to understand. I got to put rumble strips. Right? So I need to know, like, okay, time to stop. Right? My main rumble strip, she's about 4'11", right? Yeah, she's my wife. And she's like, hey, you know what you're doing tomorrow? I'm like, yeah, I got to leave. She'll do that. She'll trick me on a Friday night. We spend 5 minutes in the bedroom, like before we let the dogs in. It's usually like 20 or 30 minutes, but we'll just sit in bed and talk about our day and our week, and that gives us, some intimate time. We pray, and sometimes we'll read scripture because we don't watch TV. And she's like, well, what are your plans for tomorrow? And I'll tell her, and she's like, well, I said, is there anything you want me need me to do? She said, yes, tomorrow you're doing nothing. You're not going to do any of that. And I'm like, what? So she will, yeah. And by 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm like, thank you so much, because if I don't learn how to rest and do the things that God wants me to do, I'm going to be whooped.
I mean, the thing is, one of the interesting, when we listened to this Dr. talk today, when you have joy and you just seem to be having all this extra energy, it's a sign that you're in the right place.
So it was neat. I got to talk to him about 30 minutes before, right, because the devotional went long. So a lot of the things he was sharing have to do with, like, when he went over the scriptures and the stuff in Colossians, right? We were in Colossians today. It has to do with, like, if I know how to get to joy from where I am, and he said some of the same stuff. Like, if I'm operating, I call it self-reliance, but he was calling it in the flesh. Right? When I operate in the flesh, I'm going to run out of energy and I'm not going to get satisfied. When I operate on Christ reliance and I'm following where He leads, then I'm going to have energy, and I'm going to. Now, it doesn't mean I'm not going to have frustrations. I got to make sure I get my words and my feelings and my attitudes aligned with truth. So, like, I'm overwhelmed, I'm exhausted, and sometimes God's like, no, you're not. Like, you're whining and you're being stubborn. Like, you're resisting what I'm telling you to do. So you're trying to wear yourself out over here. And He's like, I'm going to make you just as tired fighting what I'm telling you to do as I will if I just let you do what you want to do. He said, so if you'll just stop. One of the things that I think I mentioned it before we started it with him is I have these 3 positions with the Lord. One is rebellion. Like, I know I'm not doing what He wants me to do. That's a bad one. And then I have another one that's the good one, is I know what the Lord wants me to do, and I'm holding His hand, walking where He wants me to go. And that's where I have peace and joy and all the energy in the world. And then I have my most common one, which is the Lord's told me what to do, and I'm trying to beat Him to it. And then I get tired because I'm rushing and I'm hurrying and I'm outrunning His provision.
You're doing it in your strength.
I'm trying to do it, and that's what He said. Can I do things?
Did you ever hear about the gospel calling to take naps? Cat naps.
Cat naps, yeah. But it's,
I'm not joking with you.
no, I believe you.
My doctor has assigned me to have at least 1 nap through the day.
Oh, wow.
And so
Who's your doctor?
20.
I need him. Yeah, I need that doctor.
20 minutes.
Direct your work now?
That's awesome. That is.
But it's a discipline. So I go to where I work. I'm working only part-time because I've got another gig that's happening overseas. But I leave for work, leave for lunch, go out and I sleep in my car 20 minutes, get up, and I go and have my lunch. But I've had that nap.
And that's a discipline. Because I'm a sleeper. Like, if I go lay down and I'm going to go take a break, I mean, give me an hour or 2. Or I'm going to wake up mad. I can't do it. Yeah.
But I'm just saying that part of the issue of our fatigue, I mean, I'm 74, okay? Part of the issue is fatigue is sometimes tricky to deal with because you're fatigued, but, your work is not stopped. So I guess just the whole, the thing about naps, that's all. I just was just mentioning, sorry.
No, that's a really good point, because you mentioned fatigue, and I think did you want to say something?
It's a little bit off subject, and so I don't know if it needs to wait till the end, but on subject, but the 3-legged stool. What I found with our guys, the job and place to stay, they need that. Church and a recovery group, and that's what's missing. Yeah, on that, and many times I find with our guys, I gotta have a place to stay and I gotta have a job, Rich. But finding, like you mentioned, the church you go to, I know my church is a Baptist church, and a lot of times the guys from the mission, they feel like they don't fit in. And finding a church where they are able to make those relationships at, and I'm just, your thoughts.
So, yeah, let me swap for a second. I want to, real quick on the fatigue, one of the things that I have to do, self-assessing is one of the hardest things we ever do. Right? Self-assessing. Okay. Like, can you tell me where you are right now in your walk with everything today? It's a really hard thing to do.
I've only done 2 naps today.
but I need feedback from others. Right? It's almost like you ever do land navigation? Probably some of you done land navigation. Like I need to triangulate where I'm at. So I need points of reference. So I need you and you and you, or I'm going to guess I'm over here and I'm off. So when somebody tries to come meet me where I'm at, they show up at where I don't think I am. So if I'm measuring my fatigue, am I physically tired, am I mentally tired, or am I spiritually tired? Where do I need rest? And if I'm only one of those tired, then I need to spend energy in the other two so that I can get balanced. Right? Because I can't just physically rest. If I physically rest and my brain's not tired, I'm not going to wake up balanced. So those are all difficult things to do. Yours has to do, like, we have these common 3 circles, right? So I've got, and this is, we do this like a lot. So this is like home, church, and work. This little spot is the only true me. It's the only place where I'm the same in all 3 environments. Right? I want to make that spot bigger and bigger and bigger. So when I have, and this is, it starts, because you can't start with these guys and just give them the solution. Because it doesn't fit into their little box. So the first is like, okay, well, take your work environment, right, and your home environment. That's the 3 legs. Right. And you've got to start shifting those things towards a church, right, towards a spiritual thing. So were you in there with the biblical confrontation or the biblical counseling guy when he did his seminar?
Yes.
So one of the things he kind of talked about was that, like, if my worldview, if my core worldview is not Jesus, my core worldview is going to be based on something else. Money. It's either going to be money or a trauma, right, or a girl or a job or a home. Mm-hmm. So these are three competing things. So if they don't have Jesus implanted down here, they're not going to be able to line those things up.
Seek ye first the kingdom of God.
Right, but at what level do they know it? Right? And then go back to what I was talking about earlier, at what level do they believe it? Mm-hmm. So one of the things we have to do in program is to give them the opportunities to practice their beliefs and experience the outcome of God's goodness. Mm-hmm. I tell people when they transition from 9 months out in the wilderness of getting all the meat and potatoes of the program, and then they come to transition, and one of the first lessons I would teach them is, hey, you've been in program for 9 months, and God has blessed every single one of you more than you could ask or imagine. When was the last time you were 9 months sober? When was the last time your daughter answered the phone? When was the last time you had this kind of health, physical health, right? And all these relationships. So God has blessed you, and most of you in here haven't even given a crap about the program. You have not worked as hard as you know that. Right? You can look around at your buddies and be like, I worked harder than him, they worked harder than me. You all kind of know it. So can you acknowledge from where you are that where you were 9 months ago, God has brought you to where you are? So that gives you an opportunity to turn your knowing into believing. So if you'll just stick around and finish everything that we ask you to do, He's going to continue to bless you. But now is where you start having the true options to fall to temptation and to fall to and to make your own choices and to not put things in your life. So I want those guys that have a job and have a home to be drawn or to intentionally push themselves towards church. I asked a question in a recovery meeting. It was a staff meeting, and I was a peer. I don't think I was a year sober yet. And I asked a question. I said, this is 8 years ago, and I wasn't a year sober yet. I asked questions. Why is it that when I had the trunk of my car full of booze, but I knew I was going to run out in 3 days, that I started getting anxious? but now I'm sober and I love Jesus and I'm not that concerned about him.
You don't have the same level of
Desperate.
love, desperate, or
Right.
commitment.
Two reasons at the time, and one of them I think I know both of them are. Number one is God will never make me a slave. I have to choose it, and I have to practice it. And the more I practice it, the more I see his results, and the more I want the results of having a relationship with him. So I become addicted to that instead of to the chemical. And the other one is, it's a wonderful word. You probably never heard it before. Like, you know, situational awareness, you know, spatial awareness. I started using a new word. It's desperational awareness. Right? Are you aware of how desperate you really are? Right? David is the perfect example of that. Right? He might have been king. He might have been whatever position. He's going to cry out to God with an understanding of his desperation. I am just as desperate today standing in front of you guys with 8 years sober and whatever degrees and training I have than I was negative day one. Because I'm still the same person without God. As long as I can keep that desperational awareness, then I got a chance. And I can let God in and keep taking those next steps forward. So but people forget that along the way. Because God's changed their life, and if they aren't reminded along the way, gracefully, gently, and joyfully, that it's God that's doing the transformation, they're going to transfer it from God to whatever idol they want it to be. Like Moses is up on the mountain. Like, we don't know where Moses went. Make us a calf. This calf took us out of Egypt. Like, God's right there. So I can't get upset at people. Number one, I can't get upset. Blackaby mentioned that too, right? You don't get disappointed in people. Don't try and fix people, right? Just enjoy them. Like, if someone doesn't have Jesus in their heart, hasn't professed it, and I'm not sure of it, I can't treat them like a Christian. So I start holding them accountable to things that they haven't committed to. Like, they don't even have the empowerment from the Spirit to be committed to it. And I'm trying to get them to have this transformational change. They don't have the currency. They don't even speak the language. I'm droning on and on. Here's some of our, this is some of our partners. And so the financial structure, right? Maximum Pell Grant's $924. If you send us 2 or more students a year, you get a $250 discount each student per course. And our tuition is $800. There's a one-time per term technology fee, so they get back $324. Now we're going to raise our tuition $50 a course in the fall term. We just have to. We haven't raised tuition probably in 10 years. It's not, obviously, $50. It's not so we can make more money. But the refund to the student is still going to be $274 and $659 or $49. Yeah. These are our certificates today: addiction counseling, nonprofit management, business administration, Christian ministry and leadership, retail management, food services management, facilities management, recovery coaching, nonprofit fundraising. The difference between addiction counseling and recovery coaching are the skill sets, the courses, right? So our top certificates have 3 hard skills courses and 3 soft skills courses. The bottom 2 have 6 soft skills courses. Those soft skills courses are life skills, right? So they're about life balance. So they deal with emotional intelligence and relational health. They deal with recovery. They deal with your purpose and calling. They deal with your physical health. They deal with your ability to present yourself, right, and do job research. They deal with, technology, life balance, behavioral addiction, so addiction transfer, and how technology influences your life. And they deal with family issues and recovery. So what are the things that, because remember we talked about joy, right? I'm supposed to learn how to get from joy as a kid. First, when I'm a baby, like I see my parents, I see them smiling, it brings me to joy. I get the dirty diaper, my mom cleans me, it brings me to joy. I bang my head crawling across the floor, my dad picks me up and holds me, it brings me to joy. I'm supposed to learn how to get to joy from every single emotion. But stuff happens and we don't. We don't learn, or we forget, or trauma happens, and so a lie gets planted in there, and instead of us finding healing and getting the truth and back to joy, which is actually Jesus, the lie grows, and that lie is between us and getting to joy from that emotion. So in recovery, even today, like I'll get stuck in an emotion, and that is the first sign to me that I'm not in a good place. Okay, well, I'm stuck in this emotion. I know the answer is Jesus, but I don't know how to get to Jesus from here. So what do? Because I can't assess where I am, I sit. And I be still until God sends me somebody or meets me where I'm at. Because if I just start running around trying to figure something out, I'm liable to take the wrong direction. But people don't know that early on, so I'm kind of, but those are what we teach in the courses. So the family issues and recovery has to do with family origin. So rigid family of origin, enmeshed, chaotic. Like an example is I know someone very special to me grew up in a very chaotic family, right? So when she grew up, she became very structured because that's what made her safe. So how do you think she reacts to chaotic environments today? Not well, right? Who's fairly chaotic? Have you ever heard me speed up talking? Right? We talked about this, I think, last year. I'll get ramped up and get to moving and going really fast, and I have to recognize when I start doing that, she starts to feel unsafe. So when I learn not only my family of origin and how I tend to act, but how others do, then it makes me a better minister to them. Because I know that if I do this and I'm going to make you unsafe, I'm not going to do that. So that makes you feel safe in my presence because I can decide to be what makes you safe. It's a big deal. So we'll go to our typical profile, high school graduate or GED. We're up to like 20% of program graduates because of the certificate fits. And then the capacity to spend 17 hours a week on a course is real because we're giving semester credit in an 8-week term. So a lot of times this clicks into how are you going to make them work that hard when they're new in recovery, right? Like you're talking about stress and you're talking about threats and you're going to add those things to their life. The neat thing is our courses are practical. So they're not going to take math, science, physics, chemistry, and the courses that we teach are designed to increase resiliency in those areas. So actually the time that they spend learning is going to increase their ability to deal with stress. So it actually has it's almost a paradox. It has the opposite effect. The more time they spend working, doing their homework in the Wounded Healers course, the better they're going to be. Like if it's a 17-hour course and they spend 25 hours a week on the homework, they're going to be in better shape than if they spent 10, because that's the way the courses are designed. So ways we support it is like being part of your wraparound, like I mentioned earlier. If there's a student struggling, like if you see them struggling and you're like, I don't know what to do with them, give me a call. If I see them struggling and they're not turning their homework and they're not answering me, I'm going to give you a call. And be like, hey, have you seen what's going on with Bobby? Oh, Bobby's doing great. He was just leading the Bible study last night. And I'm like, well, he hadn't turned in homework in 2 weeks. You might want to check on him. And because he might be hiding something because shame, it sneaks in. Another part is the support that we offer because our courses aren't super difficult is when they come to us, we are so invested in their success, especially their first few terms, because once they get used to succeeding, they tend to continue succeeding. So I'm super invested in spending time with them, even if they struggle with capacity or memory. Like I've done that with a few students. Like I'll meet with them every week for 8 weeks, helping them get their homework and stuff turned in. And sometimes they get it and they stick around. Sometimes they don't. But they always are going to get the love and they're always going to get the attention. So they're even if they can't do it, they don't leave with a bad attitude or poor attitude. They leave knowing that they're loved, and they're still going to get something out of the courses, and they're still going to get a relationship. So we have, this is what I talk about, credit for recovery programs and vocational training experience. So if you have anything that you do at your ministry that is documented, like you have a syllabus, you have an objective, you have course objectives for this period of time, or if you use Genesis process or self-confrontation or any of those things, we can get you a non-traditional credit evaluation packet, and we will evaluate it and then give you feedback. So it's not a one and done. It's like, nope, that stinks. Bye. It's no, fix this. Add a couple more things in here. Do a couple more things in, and we need them to spend more hours doing homework, and then they can be program graduates and they can get credit at C Division University that applies to their associates and their bachelor's degrees. So there's it's the same QR code. I'm going to show you you can learn more about it from these websites. Again, if you'll you can leave me a card, or you can come up here and write your email down. You can put it on the board in the vendor room. But you can, if you do that, I'll send you all the links to the slide deck, our toolkits. I mean, I can hop in real quick. Anybody wants to? Let's see here. 4 organizations over here. Free rescue mission staff training. So podcast, archive toolkits. So here's the tools. So human resources toolkits, rescue mission history and values, staff training for rescue missions, food services development, the ministry OS toolkit. So you click into any of those, and there's the workshop slides, aligning strategy with theology. We've got tons of stuff on our website that's free. Now we would love to participate in all of this with you, but if that's not what you choose to do, just take what we have and use it if you can. You know, it's not sitting there. One of the things like about the doctorate that we have now, and it has to do with so the concentrations for the doctorate are there. But you don't do a dissertation, right? You don't write something that goes over here and somebody might read it if they find it. Like, you need to have a podcast, you need to have a book, you need to have a course, right, or a workshop. So you're developing things that are going to get distributed out into the world, because you're trying to solve a problem. You're not just trying to tell us how much you learned about a problem. So our doctorate is intended to solve, and most of it's rescue mission-based problems. So that's why mine's, effective not aftercares. That's going to be after, but first is just effective programs. How do we fix those barriers that are in the middle of programs that people are just like, okay, I'm gone. Like, does anybody in here do 12 steps in your program? Do Genesis? What do you do? Anything? Celebrate Recovery? All right. So there's a lot of times when they get to specific parts that are really internal, that you're going to see that's when your biggest drop-off is. Right? There's that 3 to 5 month part of any program, when their brain actually starts working, they feel safe and everything's going good. They're like, okay, I'm gone. How do you fix that? All right? We're in after time, so you guys can do whatever you want. But one of the solutions to that is in that period, so somewhere between 90 and 150 days, take them on a retreat. Right? Get them out in the woods. Do James Wilder, right? The Man Wild at Heart. I don't know if you guys do Wild at Heart. I wasn't a huge fan of it, but you get them somewhere and you get them re-engaged and you get them spiritually aligned so that they can overcome, because they're gonna run into a barrier then. Post-acute withdrawal is going to kick in at 90 days and 120 days. They're going to have some issues. So, we have to find ways to overcome those barriers, because it's the ones who graduate and the ones that keep on. Anytime someone leaves early, their chances are slim. So, thanks for listening to me today, and I hope it was nice. And like I said, I'll send you anything that you want. And that's all I've got, guys. Thanks for the time.